Hey, First Things First listeners, before we start the show, I wanted to tell you about our brand new Fox Sports app and website, foxsports.com, reimagined for the modern sports fan. Go ahead, download the new app right now. You don't even have to pause this episode. Every day on the new app and website, you'll see the top stories in sports, plus a rich world of written content, videos, social media, and analytics to give you a 360-degree view of the most important stories of the day. Streaming live TV has never been so easy or elegant. Every Fox Sports game, including all pregame and postgame shows, as well as the televised version of this show, just a click away. For the extra invested fan, we also go deep with real-time wagering lines, trending prop bets, win probability, and key player projections. So download the new Fox Sports app or visit www.foxsports.com. Now let's start the show.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe, Nick Wright, Brandon Marshall. Kevin Wildes looked good. Brandon's got football. We got big basketball to talk about. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's nice.
He dresses for the occasion.
Graphics.
Yeah.
Graphics,
Christine did well
music.
with you. Our
Jenna's
stylist,
wearing her
everything
holiday
looks good.
earrings. All of it. It all is just
we look
so
good.
festive today.
I went with the 3/4-inch white. Exactly. Big NBA news to start the show this morning. And obviously we got Giannis to talk about, but we're going to start with James Harden in Houston. 3 burning questions coming in here. Would James Harden play? That would be yes. How would he look in his preseason debut? That would be very okay. 12 points, 21 minutes. And third, what would he say afterward? Cricket. A resounding nothing from James Harden, the Rockets star, declining to speak to the media. Still hasn't said a word since requesting a trade out of Houston. But John Wall spoke. Take a listen to what he had to say.
John, considering what you have to say carries a lot of weight, do you go into like recruit mode to try to keep him here? Are you talking to him about that sort of thing? What's happening when y'all have conversations that obviously we're not privy to?
Oh, end of the day, I mean, that's a friend. I mean, I've been cool with James before we even became teammates and never thought this idea we would become been on the same team. End of the day, he's going to do what's best for him, and the organization's going to do what's best for them also. So most important thing is when we step on that floor, we step into practice, we're focusing ourselves on basketball. And I don't try to ask him about that because that's his personal business. All I worry about is what we can do to make this Rockets team the best team it can be while everybody is here and move forward with them.
All right, so obviously we got ourselves a James Harden situation. Nick, moving forward, you expect this to get better, worse, or stay the same now?
It's not going to get worse, and it's not going to get better until they trade him. So I think it's going to stay the same. And I don't think that's a terrible place for the Rockets. And I don't think it's necessarily a terrible place for James Harden. I want to back up about a week. Because last week I was very hard on James Harden for how he was handling his holdout. And in part of that was because I have been so overwhelmingly supportive of James Harden, especially compared to other members of the media, other members of the basketball media, that I felt like him no showing, no calling essentially to work was a bridge too far. But now that he's there, here's what you get with James Harden. Since he's been a Houston Rocket, 8 years ago, they acquired him. No one has scored more points. No one plays more minutes per game. Only Chris Paul and, in fact, only Damian Lillard and PJ Tucker, have played more total games. He is a walking playoff berth. He and Chris Paul are the only superstars to play in the playoffs every year over the last 8 years. And he cares too much about his legacy and his numbers to just mail it in. So while the Rockets try to figure out where they are going to trade him to, and they are going to eventually trade him, I don't think that can be salvaged. James Harden's going to do what James Harden does. Take a bunch of shots, take a bunch of free throws, score 30-plus points a night, and win about 2 out of every 3 games he plays in. Like, that's what is going to happen while the Rockets figure this out. So, Brandon, I don't think it's going to get better. I don't think it's going to get worse. I think you saw James Harden in a Rockets uniform last night. The holdout's over, and he's going to keep playing.
Nick, it gets worse, buddy. You know this. Whenever a player opts not to talk to the media, that's a bad sign. James Harden is going into year 12. He knows better. He knows how powerful the media is. For him to go from no showing, holding out, to coming in and not talking to the media, that's a problem. That's a sign that this thing is trending in the wrong direction. Everything you said, Nick, is the reason why I believe it gets worse. This guy wants to win. You got to think about the little things that happen on the team every single day that makes teams come together. It makes everything comfortable. It's hard. This is $1 billion business. These guys are getting paid $300 million, almost $300 million a year. How much money do they make off of the court? Like, these guys, right, when you come together, the handshakes, the camaraderie, the chemistry, that's what keeps things together. In the locker room, on the bus, while you're traveling, you're not going to see this. It's uncomfortable every single time James Harden walks in the building. The Houston Rockets said it best. They said they're willing to get uncomfortable late into the season. That's exactly what's going to happen. Because when you see this guy, does he smile? Should I smile back at him? Should I say hello? Those are things that happen. I've seen it time and time again in the National Football League. This is unprecedented in basketball, Wilds. But in the NFL, we see it all the times. And when the cameras are not on, it's like, man, you know, we got to answer questions. You just saw John Wall sit up there in his press conference. He's going to have to answer those questions every single night. Is James Harden in? You guys are playing really well. Do you think he's going to stay? You guys played bad. Do you think James is upset? I think this gets worse, Wilds.
Okay. I think it gets much better. And if I was the Rockets, I'd say 10 games. Give us 10 games. Because here's the Rockets' schedule. Thunder, Portland, Denver, 2 games against Sacramento. Let's give you 3-2 there. Not bad. Then the next 3 games. Mavs, Pacers, Magic. Let's give you 2-1. So now you're 5-3. You're winning games. And games 9 and 10 are home against the Lakers. Nick, if they win those games, I think winning solves all. And next thing you know, James Harden's happy. And I don't know how you can go demand a trade if you beat the champs back to back. So I think you say, hey, give us 10 games, knowing that those Lakers games are coming up. Maybe even LeBron rests that game. Who knows? And then James Harden, I don't know how he could still have this level of motivation to leave because they can't win if you beat the Lakers back-to-back on your home floor.
Well, listen, I don't think the Rockets can win the title. I think James knows that. 2 points here. One is, Jenna, I feel like your opening question, is it going to get better, worse, or stay the same, could have also been asked about Kevin Wilde's tie situation, and in a huge upset, evidently the answers get worse. That thing might as well be over his right shoulder. I mean, my God, buddy, straighten the thing out. Like, what's going on? You're the one guy wearing a tie, and you can't get it straight. You're making it worse. Like I said, it's just getting worse. No. It's the mirror image thing. There you go. There you go, buddy. All right, now, as far as James Harden goes, I think that someone close to him or someone with the Rockets, it might be instructive for them to say, James, I know you have in your mind Anthony Davis. He was traded to the team he asked to be traded to, and it worked out great. Kawhi Leonard, though, was traded. Now, it worked out in the end, by the way, but nobody saw the Raptors coming. You had Paul George traded. Nobody saw Oklahoma. I'm talking about before the Clippers. Nobody saw Oklahoma City coming. Kyrie Irving, much like James Harden, gave a list of teams. Celtics weren't on it. Celtics are the one he goes to. Nobody saw that one coming. So James has expanded his list. Now it's Milwaukee, Miami, Brooklyn, Philly, again, trying to avoid LeBron's side of the bracket, which shows what a heady player he is. If I'm someone with the Rockets, I'm like, James, hey, man, that money might spend in Salt Lake City. It might spend in Sacramento. And so try not to upset the apple cart too much, because if you want a winning team, a championship caliber team, Jenna, to want you, you probably are going to have to be as good of a soldier as possible.
And maybe his olive branch was showing up and actually playing. He just wasn't going to talk to the media. All right, much more on this still to come. We got to take a turn and talk some Saints now. They suddenly find themselves with a very important decision to make this weekend. Perhaps the most important. It's next. First things first.
What's up, First Thing First listeners? It's your boy Shay Sharp, co-host of FS1's Undisputed. I wanted to tell you about my new podcast, Club Shay Shay, where we always do something before two something. Each week, I sit down with a guest for a drink and conversation, and as host and proprietor of Club Shay Shay, I've welcomed in esteemed guests such as Snoop Dogg, Floyd Money Mayweather, LeVar Ball, Isaiah Thomas, just to mention a few. Whether I'm talking to an athlete, a musician, an actor, or a lifelong friend, Club Shay Shay is a place where people share inspiring and motivational stories about their journeys to prominence. The new episode drops every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to Club Shay Shay now and make sure you never miss a new episode. Now, back to First Things First.
Back here talking Saints now. The New Orleans Saints are now going on 5 weeks without Drew Brees, still recovering from fractured ribs. In his absence, with Taysom Hill under center, Saints went 3-1. But here's the deal. Brees, eligible to come off IR, can return this weekend. Saints at 10-3, hosting the Chiefs this weekend. What do? Let Brees rest, or you get him back in there to face the defending Super Bowl champs? Drew weighed in with this. He said, I just think where we are in our journey as a team, there's a lot to play for each and every week, and you get to play against arguably one of the best teams in the NFL right now, in the Chiefs, with one of the best quarterbacks. So it's a great challenge. If you love football, you love these kinds of challenges. Brandon, I'll start with you. Is Drew Brees' return the only way the Saints can take down Mahomes and the Chiefs? Or do you think you put Taysom back in there? Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
I apologize. Brandon, you answer the question. I am shocked at the level of disrespect Drew Brees just levied at the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. So one of the best quarterbacks? One of the best teams? Wow.
Yeah, one of. That's
Andy
right.
Reid.
Drew Brees.
Put that on the bulletin board. My God. All right, sorry, Brandon. You answered Jenna's question. I need a moment to gather myself. Drew Brees, not a known trash talker. That was jarring.
You need to stop with this Chiefs love. We know where you're from. We know who your team is. You need to stop with all this Chief fandom, okay? Look, Jenna, big game, a lot on the line. They need more than just Drew Brees, right? Let's say Drew Brees come back. They need Drew Brees to play lights out, damn near perfect, and they need this defense to go back to who they were starting week 9, being the best defense in the NFL. You can't give up 250 yards on the ground and expect to win. That's not what you've done all year. You can't start doing that now in December. Let's say they go with Taysom Hill. We need Taysom Hill to have a Lamar Jackson type of game. I don't need Taysom Hill going out there throwing it 30, 40 times a game. Taysom Hill needs to do what he does best right now. He needs to put pressure and be dynamic in the run game and also in play action. With that defense, playing lights out. Look, here's why the Saints do have a chance. The teams that usually give the Chiefs a run for their money is teams that come in with a different type of game plan and a different playbook than the Chiefs have ever seen. That they're accustomed to watching film. Okay, let's break down this team the last 3 or 4 weeks. This is what they do on third down. This is what they do on first down. This is what they do in the red zone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then when you go see them, they do everything different. The the Vegas Raiders. That's a team that's done a good job against them this year. The Patriots in the past, and then also the Dolphins. So the Saints with Dennis Allen and this defense, every single week it's about matchups, and they put together a new game plan. That's why they have a chance, but they need to come in and play lights out and damn near perfect, because the biggest takeaway from the Chiefs-Dolphins game was, if that's the worst game, and Patrick Mahomes throwing 3 picks and they still win, then every team need to look out and play perfect when they see them. That game came down to a couple plays. And on the offensive side for the Dolphins, 3 or 4 drop balls, Nick.
So I hope Drew Brees does play. And people might think, Nick, that's not true. It is true. And it's multi-layered. First of all, I'm not going to get into all the playoff machinations, but because of the way the tiebreakers fall and the Steelers' 2 straight losses, this game actually doesn't really impact the Chiefs' ability to get the 1 seed. Assuming the Steelers win out the rest of the way, the 1 seed is going to come down to if the Chiefs beat the Chargers in Week 17. If they do, no matter what happens against the Saints, they're the 1 seed. If they don't, no matter what happens against the Saints, they're the 2 seed, assuming Pittsburgh goes 3-0 the rest of the way. So there aren't really any big implications for the Chiefs in this game, Wilds. So I would like to see Brees play, because if he doesn't, then what motivation does Kansas City have to show anything? They know this could be the Super Bowl. So if you are going to be playing, if they start Taysom, nothing the Saints do in this game will be duplicable in the Super Bowl. There will be nothing you can learn from it if you face them in the Super Bowl. But the Chiefs, on the other hand, would be saying, well, we're going to be playing our regular guys, our regular lineup. We're going to give you practice and reps and experience against it in a game where we're not going to get any of that. Now, if Brees plays, one could argue what's to gain is a mental and psychological edge if this is the Super Bowl matchup of, yeah, we already played you with your quarterback and we beat you. But if Drew Brees doesn't play, I would imagine the most vanilla Kansas City offense you've seen since before Mahomes got there, because I don't see how you're incentivized to try to give Sean Payton and Dennis Allen and the Saints anything to work with if this does end up being the Super Bowl matchup. Wise.
Well, you play chess. I love how you're playing chess. Sorry, Wiles, go ahead.
No, you think they're playing chess? No, it's all right if you're upset. If you want a boring offense, Andy Reid can call up Josh McDaniels and we could send the PDF over, the Patriots offense. You could run that. It doesn't work. It doesn't show anything. Just a bunch of quarterback draws. That's totally fine. Brandon, unless Drew Brees is 110%, which is what John Wall said, and that's why he didn't go to the bubble. He's like, I'm 110%. Like, want to go to the bubble? He's like, nope. And then you looked on Instagram and he's doing 360 dunks. Like, nope, still not healthy enough. Unless Drew Brees can do a 360-degree dunk, I don't want him playing against the Chiefs. I want him just relaxing. Like he said, there's going to be more motivation to play. Like, what are you motivating? Your ribs to heal? Yeah. I don't understand how this is going to work. And that's the only thing I'm holding out. And you tell me if you think this is a thing. Is there a little bit of gamesmanship here? Like, the next thing you know, we're going to get a quote like, maybe Jameis will get a few snaps. And that the Chiefs have to game plan for 3 quarterbacks, if you count Taysom Hill as a quarterback.
Well, that's why I disagree with Nick, right? Like, I think, obviously he's playing chess and you should play chess, but not to that degree, because in the NFL, you only get 16 games, right? And every game is so crucial. So for the player, I think there's some coaches that play chess the way Nick is setting things up. But for the most part, most players, they're just thinking every game is critical. We don't think about, 2 weeks down the road, 3 weeks down the road. Like, we'll look at the schedule, but at the end of the day, every game matters. We want to win this game. That means a lot. Like, this is man versus man, and this is our pride that's on the line. But when you talk about coaches, now, Nick, here's where I do agree with you as far as like playing chess. It's, look, don't go in with a vanilla game plan, but let's show them something. So if we do see them in the Super Bowl, then we can use counter. It against them. Let's run this run play, misdirection, and then next time we pull it and we throw this pass. So I like to play chess that way, where we actually come with something, and then when we see them again, we built off of that package.
I love the chess references. I got to learn how to play. So you guys mentioned Jameis Winston. This is interesting. Sean Payton joined the Huddle and Flow podcast. So he covered a number of topics, including how Jameis plays into the Saints' future at quarterback. They've gone with 30-year-old Taysom Hill. We know that, while Drew Brees has been sidelined. But Sean Payton said Jameis is, quote, going to have that opportunity the minute Drew leaves. So, Brandon, who's more likely to be Brees' successor at this point? Taysom or Jameis? We haven't seen Jameis Winston in there yet for Brees.
Yeah, no, listen, guys, if you haven't heard it, go listen to the podcast, Huddle and Flow. You got Jim Trotter and Steve. They did a phenomenal job in interviewing Coach Payton. The reason why I love listening to it, because you get a behind the curtain look on this whole dynamic between Jameis and Taysom. Who's going to start? Like, that was the biggest question. We all thought it was going to be Jameis Winston, and he actually goes into the why. He says, I promised Taysom that if he comes back, he will be the number 2 guy. Now, look, in the middle of a game, if somebody goes down, then I'm going to go with Jameis. So now we see it. And he also talks about how Jameis is the guy. He's a starter. He's done everything right. So I believe that Jameis will be it. Nick, you crush Taysom all the time, and there is some validity behind it. I think this guy's trending in the right direction. I think he's developing, but I don't think that, with Jameis playing good football and protecting the ball, number one, that he's better than him. So I do think that Jameis will be the guy moving forward.
Yeah, Taysom might be trending in the right direction. He's 30 years old. Age 35, he might have this quarterback thing down. Hopefully he's still got some time left in the league at that point. But Jameis is 26 years old and threw for 5,000 yards last year. Obviously, his turnovers are a historic problem. If I'm the Saints, I desperately want to give him a chance to see if, under a different offense, different coaching, different skill guys, if he can just become below average as far as turning the ball over instead of one of the worst in NFL history, then he's a good quarterback.
Low bar.
Because of the arm talent, because of the ability to throw the deep ball. I know we don't have time to get into it right now, but our old buddy Kevin Wildes put him under truth serum. I think if he had a time machine, he'd rather have had Jameis than Cam, knowing what we know now. So, yeah, I do think that's Jameis is, if the quarterback of the future is on the Saints, it has to be Jameis. Maybe it's neither, but it's certainly not Taysom.
Yeah, and Nick, really quick, this is why I think Jameis can thrive in this offense and this system, because it takes all the guesswork out of it, right? A lot of guys, they throw a lot of picks because they go out there and they do their own thing. Coach Payton is not going for you doing your own thing. It's literally, here's what we're doing. We're going trips right. We're going gopher. We're going, let's say, all go. We got go on the outside, a seam in the middle. We got this third receiver, which they're known for running across the field, and this dude doing the speed out. If they do this, you do. This is your read. 1, 2, 3. Point blank, period. Throw the ball. If it's a pick or if anything goes wrong, that's on me, because I'm telling you what to do. That's how he runs his thing. He takes all the guesswork out of it. Jameis can thrive in this situation.
And hello, Jameis had LASIK surgery. Ooh, he can see now.
Yep.
Maybe that's
oh, the tears.
Here we go. It's
guys, these are the most important tears yet.
I promise you, this will have your head spinning. These are the most important yet.
Jenna, these are controversial and important.
Oh, look at the time. It's 8 o'clock on a Wednesday morning. The committee has convened. Nick, it is time for your NFL peers entering Week 15. Take us through this week's changes, which are including some seismic shifts, I understand.
Yeah, so we've broken the tiers into 2 parts, playoff teams and non-playoff teams. We're going to start with the non-playoff teams, obviously. I'm going to go through this part very quickly. Can we show it, please? Listen, Jets, Jags, Bengals should have always stayed by themselves. They're the bottom. They'll never win again this year. When does hoops start? Those teams in those 6 cities, they're like, is it basketball season yet? Wait till next year. All those teams are like, man, injuries or bad luck, it killed us. And then that top row, those are 4 teams, sorry Dolphins, who at the end of the year are going to end up 1 game short. Everyone else is going to be a playoff team, but we can't show that yet. Because the committee has asked me, they delivered me this letter, and they've asked, I don't know if you can read it, it says to America from the committee. They've asked me to read it to you. And so I'm going to do that to the best of my ability. The committee would like to address the allegations of bribery and bullying that have plagued this week's rankings. The allegations of bribery, most notably, Lil Wayne allegedly offering a guest verse on his upcoming album, I Am Not a Human Being 3, in order to raise the Packers to the #1 spot, were thoroughly investigated and found to have no merit whatsoever. Unfortunately, the committee cannot say the same about the allegations of rampant bullying, intimidation, and threats upon committee members.
Oh, man.
What's going on there?
A roving cabal, which identified itself only as the Bills Mafia, has harassed this committee to the point to where we had to hold this week's meeting under the protection of retired Mossad agents. Despite the harassment, the committee is proud to say we were able to complete our charge and deliver this week's tiers. And to this alleged mafia, you were not the first, and you will not be the last. Back when the Bills Mafia was nothing but a local street gang, the committee was weathering threats from Raider fans who claimed to be from a black hole. We dealt with them the way we will deal with you, with honor, integrity, and courage. Signed, the committee. So, Bills Mafia,
could they just be right?
Buckle up. Your threats didn't work. Show the next tiers, please. 14 playoff teams revealed as such. Wild card weekend. Those teams are good teams. They're going to make the playoffs. They're not going to last past wild card weekend. Trust issues. Those 4 teams, you want to believe in them, but for one reason or another, you can't totally trust them. Super Bowl or bust. Those 3 football teams, if they come up short of the Super Bowl, no matter how good the season was otherwise, they are going to consider it a disappointment. Number 1 contender spot for the first time all year, the Green Bay Packers got there, again, without any Lil Wayne bribery. And, of course, the champs stay the champs. So that is this week's tiers. Those will be your 14 playoff teams, Brandon. The committee has prophesized. And I don't know what issue you could possibly have with this week's rankings. They seem perfect.
This is all a setup, buddy. And I'm getting wiser. I'm getting smarter. Tuesday night, when the committee sends out their tiers for us to review so we can prepare for today's show, right? The first thing I look at is, okay, what is that? Where's that one team that stands out where they're just misplaced and Nick totally and his committee totally got it wrong? And last night, the first thing that jumped out to me was the Buffalo Bills. And I was like, why does Nick have the Buffalo Bills so low? And I'm thinking about you trying to be inside of my head, knowing that I'm going to pick the Buffalo Bills and try to petition them to move up. But then I said, okay, if I pick the Buffalo Bills, there's going to be this big old setup. And what's going to end up happening is you're going to actually compare the Buffalo Bills to the Cleveland Browns and somehow try to create this discussion around this quarterback and how these teams are alike. And then the numbers are going to show that the Cleveland Browns are better. So I'm not even going to buy into that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like this is a setup. So this is what I want to do. Okay, Mr. Committee, there's 3 teams on these tiers that I feel should be considered the scariest playoff matchups. And the 3 teams are, bam, here we go. Let's jump into it. We got the Bucs, we got the Colts, and we got the Bills. All right? So I'm not going to single out the Bills. I'm going to talk about these 3 teams. These are teams you don't want to see in the playoffs. You have the Bucs. Like, I always look for the one team that could be reminiscent of the 2005 Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, who's that team that's just hot, trending in the right direction come December? You have the Tampa Bay Bucs. Look, we know what we're going to get from that defensive side. They're elite. They play lights out. On the offensive side, if they can figure out their challenges, this could be a scary team. We know they have everything they need inside that locker room to get it done and make a nice run. The Colts. Oh, the Colts. Wild, how did you jump off the Colts? The Colts, man, they lose one game, and then all of a sudden, Mr. Kevin Wiles, you're like, oh, let me go to this team or that team. Let me jump on the Pittsburgh Steelers bandwagon. No, this is a good team. Their defense is elite. They can do everything. They play together. Their scheme makes sense. And then on the offensive side, Nick, you always say it. They're a quarterback away. Well, this quarterback, he's just been protecting the ball. If they do that, you don't want to see this team come postseason. And then the Buffalo Bills. What makes the Buffalo Bills so good? I said it yesterday. 2 guys on that roster, on that team, in that organization, they may not be there next year. You got Brian Daboll, who is lights out, just creative, dialing it up every week. You're seeing Josh Allen and his team ascending in the right direction. They can do it all. They move the ball better than every team in football outside of the Chiefs. They're good on offense. They're really good on offense. And then on the defensive side, they're getting healthy at the right time. So I truly believe you need to add a tier, and I would like for that tier to say the scariest playoff matchups, okay, and have these 3 teams sitting right there. Can we get that done?
I'll address that.
Committee.
Okay, so I'll address that very quickly. And I'm not trying to reveal any confidences here, but part of that roving cabal, Bills Mafia, may or may not have reached out to Brandon right before the tier segment started, trying to further intimidate him since they couldn't get to the committee. And, while maybe he is going to be vulnerable to those threats, we won't be. If you had that graphic up again of the Bucs, the Colts, and the Bills, the reason they are on the wild card weekend tier is because of the 3 people in that graphic. Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, Josh Allen, too old, too turnover prone, don't trust him. That's the answer. I understand people get mad at me.
Oh, my goodness.
Get mad at the committee. We'll see in a month.
Josh Allen is not too
We'll see
old.
in a month. No. I was going left to right on your television.
He said don't trust him. He said he don't trust him.
I just don't.
They can't just win.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. So that, listen, the committee has thought about it long and hard. Wilds, drinking a Moscow Mule this morning. What's up, Wilds?
Well, good day, Miss Wolfe, Mr. Marshall, and the gentleman from Kansas City.
It's better.
Dour times in the Wild household as my New England Patriots have fallen far. It's caused me to take up grandfather's elixir a little more generously than usual. Dulls the spirit, but sharpens the wit. Alas, I do have a job to do. I have brought forth, stand by, the following petition.
What's going on here?
Hereby, in this petition, I would like to bring up the Pirates of Tampa Bay up 1 notch for the reasons contained. Henceforth, Article 1, the number 1 run defense in the entire National Football League. They are only allowing 81 meters per game. And yes, Dalvin Cook had 100 meters last game, but guess what? Dalvin Cook is not on every team. Article 2. The new balanced attack, not only a great pair of shoes for grandfathers, but it's also the new offensive plan by Bruce Arians. This has been an issue. We know this, Nicholas. Here are the splits of passing versus running.
Oh, New Balance.
41-13, 48-18, 38 into a historic low 5. Well, against the Vikings, oh my goodness, 23 passes and 26 runs. Balance it out. It makes sense. And the final, Article 3, protect the GOAT. We know that Mr. Brady is not fantastic when pressured, however. He's only been sacked 16 times. It's the 4th fewest. He's only been pressured 16% of the time. That's the 5th least. Now, he has been hit almost 50 times, which puts him in the upper quartile of hits. If they need to keep him from being hit too much, luckily, his blood flows with gumption in championships. It won't be an issue. So for the following reasons, Nicholas, I demand yet again that the Pirates of Tampa Bay move up a tier. Good day.
Yeah, so listen. If they get a team in Wild Card Weekend that doesn't have a pass rush, you should expect them to win. Unfortunately for them, Wild Card Weekend, they are likely looking at their best case scenario is they move up to the 5 seed. That means they play Washington. Washington's got a lights out pass rush. We know what the Rams pass rush looks like. We know what the Saints pass rush looks like. I guess if you're Tampa, you're hoping to play Seattle. But in that situation, even the most ardent Tom Brady supporters, Jenna, know you don't have the best quarterback on the field. And as far as coaching matchups go, you're going up against a coach not who has coached in a Super Bowl, but who has won a Super Bowl. So for all those reasons, I just think it's a really tough spot for the Bucs because their biggest weakness is so many other teams' strengths as far as who they'd have to go up against. I agree with a lot of those points. I just don't think they can deal with a big pass rush, nor does the committee.
All right, so let's move on. Games to watch this week, Nick. Just 2 games between the committee's playoff teams. Seahawks at Washington on Fox, and you got obviously the big Chiefs-Saints game. What do you want to see in these 2 games?
Well, Washington's one of the hottest teams in the league. The Chiefs and Saints, or the Saints were the hottest team in the league. The Chiefs arguably are the hottest team in the league now. The Chiefs-Saints game to me is, if Taysom Hill plays, you're not going to be able to take much away from it. I want to see Seattle, how they deal with Washington's pass rush. Washington might have one unit that is so good it can neutralize as big of a discrepancy as there's going to be at the quarterback position as Russ against either Alex Smith or Dwayne Haskins, whomever is starting for Washington this weekend, Jenna.
All right, let's move on because there's another team with a big decision to make, and that would be the Eagles. What does the future hold for Doug Pederson or Carson Wentz? Notice I didn't say and. That's next. First things first. Back here, first things first, we're talking Philadelphia Eagles now. Doug Pederson finally made the quarterback switch to Jalen Hurts, and it paid off with a much-needed win this past weekend. But a new column in the Philly Inquirer yesterday brought up this little nugget. It's likely that one of Doug Pederson or Carson Wentz will return in 2021, but not both. Or in other words, who's your favorite kid? Nick's the only human that actually ever answers that question. Wentz has clearly regressed this season. I told you he'd answer it. It was supposed to be semi-rhetorical.
The others know it.
Wentz has regressed this season. Peterson might have lost this team. Thank God your family doesn't watch our show, Nick. Brian Westbrook joining us now. Brian, who's your favorite kid?
The middle child.
You know what? Don't answer that.
Why she's the best.
Who should Eagles fans want on their team in 2021? Doug Pederson or Carson Wentz? Who should Eagles fans want?
Well, good morning, Jenna. And I love all of my kids the same. And so there's never any favorites here, only when it comes down to who brings me a dessert. So that's my number one kid there. But when you talk about the Eagles fan, I have to say this. If you're a fan of the Eagles, you have to want Carson Wentz to come back, fix Carson Wentz. And there's only one simple reason. In a year in 2021 where the overall salary cap will be decreasing, you can't afford to have $34 million of dead money on your cap if Carson Wentz is not there. You just can't afford to have that. And so in this scenario, you have to bring back Carson Wentz and you get rid of Doug Pederson. Here's what I would do if I'm the Eagles fan, though. I would be rooting for both Carson Wentz and Doug Pederson to come back, because this is what I know about Doug Pederson. In his 5 years being the Eagles head coach, he's won the NFC East 2 times. He's made the playoffs 3 times, and of course the Super Bowl. And this year, he's overcome more adversity, and he's been fought with more adversity than any other coach in the NFL. Many of his games this season, he's played without 9 of his starters on offense. That means he's gone into games, multiple games, with only Jason Kelce, their center, and Carson Wentz, their quarterback, from their starting group at the beginning of the season. It's just hard to compete in this league with playing with that many backups. The other thing that Doug Pederson has simply overcome is a lack of talent on their roster. Think about this. In the last 4 seasons, they've had 28 draft picks. 28. Only 4 players out of those 28 players are quality starters for this football team. So when you combine the COVID, you combine a lot of the injuries, you combine the draft picks, now I have to say that Doug Pederson should have another opportunity to come back as a head coach. Here's a question that Jeffrey Lurie has to get answered, though. Can you fix Carson Wentz? And if you answer that question correctly, then at that point, I'm bringing back Doug Pederson and Carson Wentz in 2021.
Ooh, you said a lot there, B. A lot of validity behind what you said, but the real answer and the right answer is Doug Pederson. That's who you bring back. Doug Pederson already proved that he can get it done with another quarterback. This conversation is totally different if Carson Wentz was the quarterback that took you to the promised land, that got you that ring on your finger. But he didn't. So for that reason, you got to go with Doug Pederson. Doug Pederson hasn't made any big mistakes. Doug Pederson doesn't have any management issues. He understands how to deal with clock management. So what has he really done wrong? And you said it, B. Like those issues that they have on, on the defensive side and depth at the wide receiver, that's on Howie Roseman. That's who that's on. He doesn't control the roster. So when you look at this, if you're going to pick, you got to go with Doug Pederson, Nick, because when you look at the quarterback position, it's almost like marriage. It's complicated if you have too many things going on outside of marriage, man. Like that's just not right. Don't do it. So when you look at the quarterback position, you're married. Agreed. You're married to that person. That's right. You're married to that person. Yeah. So when you look at it, what happens if you bring both of those quarterbacks back? You got Jalen Hurts. You got Jalen Hurts, and you also got Carson Wentz sitting there. So let's say we go with Carson Wentz. Yeah. Carson Wentz throws one bad throw. He throws an interception. Everybody in Philly's going to be asking for Jalen.
Everybody's asking for Jalen. Right. This is
correct.
Right. And so
it's
Brandon,
too messy.
This is so. I think Brian, as much as I adore him, I think Brian got two things dead wrong. The first one is Brian might not have a best child, but he certainly has a worst child. It's Brian Jr., who attacked the committee and attacked the tears weeks ago, and it will not be forgotten.
Yeah, little Brian.
So little Brian is clearly bottom on the depth chart. That's first of all. Second of all is this. Carson Wentz is $34 million if he's on your roster next year or if you trade him. It's like an $800,000 savings if you trade him. So that money is spent. The question is, do you want a clean cap for 2022? Now, if Jalen Hurts just falls on his face and falls apart over the final 3 games, then sure, I guess you can bring Carson Wentz back. But at some point, you got to rip the Band-Aid off. Because if you bring Carson Wentz back for 2021, because you don't want $34 million of dead money, then just so everyone understands, then in 2022, the situation is, it's $31 million if he's on your roster, and $25 million if you trade him, and $40 million if you cut him, and we're talking a little over a year from now. At some point, that bill is going to become due. And Brian, the question I would ask you is, what is the difference between it being $34 million of dead money or $34 million of backup quarterback money? To me, the only difference is at least it's a 1-year expenditure as opposed to keeping him there, and then you have to worry about it messing up your cap in future years.
Well, the big difference is pretty simple, Nick. The difference is that the only reason you bring Carson Wentz back is if you know that you can fix him. You're talking about the upside of a player that a couple of years ago was considered an MVP candidate, that you think that Carson Wentz now can be the player that he was, and you feel that this year was a total aberration. If you think that you can fix him, then you bring him back. If you think he's a lost cause, then, of course, you take the hit on the salary cap and you allow Jalen Hurts to be your starter next season.
So the question I have for you is this, Nick. When we look at like reclamation projects, there was 2 big reclamation projects. Cam Newton came to New England for $1 million. Jameis went to New Orleans for $1 million. If you're running a team, and suppose I work for you, like, hey, buddy, I got a great reclamation project. I think I can figure it out. And you're like, who is it? I'm like, Carson Wentz. It only costs us $34 million, but maybe we get a pick out of it. Wouldn't you be like, like, no, I'm not into that?
So I would, if I'm trying to sell that, I would say, I've got a great reclamation project. He can be the next Ryan Tannehill, not the next Cam or the next Jameis. A guy who, it showed minor flashes. Okay. Carson obviously showed more than Tannehill did in Miami, and then that can turn into a legitimate starting quarterback. And if I don't want to get too nerdy on the cap stuff. If he's traded If he's traded, you're right. Tannehill was traded as a backup and then ended up starting. That's a good point. But if Carson Wentz is traded, the contract turns into $24 million a year over 4 years with the first 2 years guaranteed. That might sound like a ton, but right now the Colts, for instance, are paying, forget Phillip Rivers, Jacoby Brissett, $21 million of their cap. The Jags a year and a half ago signed up to pay Nick Foles $23 million a year. So I do think there will be a team that might have some interest in Wentz if the Eagles decide to make him available, which I think they should and I think they will.
But first, we got to see what happens with Jalen Hurts over the course of the next couple of weeks, which is a good point. Hey, some big news out of Wisconsin. When was the last time we said that? Giannis is sticking around. Talking to Greek Freak's big extension on the other side. First things first.
When you took a shot at cheese.
Back here with Chris Broussard. Broussard, we guessed, we assumed, we surmised. Yesterday was made official. Giannis Antetokounmpo is staying in Milwaukee. The two-time MVP signed the biggest supermax deal in NBA history. 5 years, $228 million. And that'll keep the Greek Freak a Milwaukee Buck for most of his prime years. Bucks fans were thrilled. Giannis even thrilled her after signing on the dotted line.
What up, Bucks fans? This is Giannis, the Greek Freak. I'm excited for today. Big day today. I'll be here in Milwaukee for the next 5 years. This is my home. This is my city. I'm excited to be a part of this organization. I'm excited to go to war with my teammate. I'm excited to walk around this city. And it's been amazing, man. It's been amazing, and the show goes on, and let's get it.
Only Giannis could have a gash over his eye and still be so incredibly charming. Broussard, what does this say that Giannis decided to sign this, stay in Milwaukee instead of chasing a ring somewhere else?
Well, it says several things. One, that he's loyal, obviously, to the organization and his teammates. Two, that he looks in the mirror and he realizes he's not only never been to the finals because of his lack of a second superstar or what his teammates can do. He bears a lot of that responsibility. If he were a better player, specifically a better jump shooter, he would have had a chance to go, maybe been to the finals once before, and I think he recognizes it. Thirdly, it shows that he did not grow up on the American AAU circuit. All right, he didn't grow up playing with the best players in his state and just going out and waxing all the little local suburban AAU teams and think that's fun. All right, or even play with the best players in the country and go ahead beating these local teams. So American kids grow up like that, and they take that into the NBA. You saw Dirk Nowitzki didn't have that mentality, Tim Duncan. It doesn't happen over in Europe, so I think that's something else. But here's the biggest thing. It says that Giannis is young, and hear me out. I don't mean just his age, 26 years old. I mean his time in the spotlight. Giannis has been a star for just 4 years. He has been a superstar for maybe 3 years. He has played with the expectations of winning or getting to the finals for 2, maybe even 1 year. That means a lot. LeBron James, when LeBron James left Cleveland to go to Miami, he had played 7 years with expectations of being the next Michael Jordan. 3 or 4 years where you need to win a championship. When Kevin Durant left Oklahoma City for Golden State, it had been 6 or 7 years where you better win a championship. Where's your ring? All this leading the league in scoring. These MVPs, this is nice, but where's your ring? That pressure wears on you. It eats you up. It is a massive burden to carry. And I'm telling you, if Giannis doesn't have a championship in about 3 years, he will definitely be looking elsewhere, because then he will have played for several seasons where people start belittling his individual achievements because, oh, you don't have a ring. What's it mean? And that is the biggest thing in this situation.
You know what? Yeah, 100%. But the first thing I think about is his story and stability, right? Like, do you guys remember his story? You guys know it, but man, it's an impressive story. It's one of just resiliency and perseverance. Like every day, like I look at these food stamps. They sit right here on my desk. These are food stamps. After I signed my $40 million deal, my mom came to me and she gave me these food stamps and she said, son, don't ever forget where you come from in your story. Like I used to take these food stamps to the local grocery store and get what we needed, the government cheese, et cetera, et cetera. I remember those moments where it's wintertime and we had no hot water. We had to take cold showers after playing football, after playing basketball in the snow. I remember those moments where my mom used to heat up pots of water on the stove and dump it into the bathtub just so she can take a hot bath. That's what I remember. And then it takes me to his story. An undocumented son of immigrants from Nigeria, growing up in Greece, selling things on the side of the road. So that's what I think about is the stability now that he can give his family. They were living day to day in Greece. If you know his story, then you know they were selling things and living day to day. So that's the first thing I think about is how powerful his story is and him giving this opportunity to take care of so many people. I think you said a lot. You know, this is him showing his loyalty. This is him not being Americanized in a way, right? Like 10 years ago, things shifted for the American athlete. Maybe starting with LeBron, like I can control my own destiny. Thinking about the different markets, I thought about like, oh, I could go play for the Jets and Giants and build up what I want to do post-career. I thought about, you know, oh, what if I play with this quarterback or that quarterback, Russell Wilson, and you got Drew Brees? He's not thinking that way. He's thinking, you know what? I'm here. I'm grateful, and it's an honor to be in the NBA. This is the team that drafted me, Nick, and now I'm going to make the best of it. I think this is a breath of fresh air.
Brandon, that was a great story. Thanks for sharing, except the part about the Jets. It really took it to a bad direction. But that part was really brutal. All right, so a lot of people will say there's too many trophies. Those people are liars. There are not enough trophies. So here's what I want to do. I want to invent a new trophy. It's going to be a belt, though. Not enough belts. Combat sports got plenty of belts. Not enough belts in the other sports. It's going to be called the Dirk Nowitzki belt. And here's how you get it. And spoiler alert, Giannis is in the running for the Dirk Nowitzki belt. Katana, can we show the 3 criteria? 1, if you want to win the Dirk Nowitzki belt. Before we go, the belt is going to have Dirk Nowitzki on it. We're still working on the graphic design. It's not just a WWE belt with Dirk. You get a belt that looks like that, but it's a picture of Dirk. Okay, number 1, tenure. You got to be long tenured on your team. Number 2, championship drought. You can't just win a championship and then get it again. It's a belt. It's got to go from one person to the other. 3, sentimentality. Here's where that statistic is. Right here. Right behind the rib cage, buddy. Your heart. Here are the power rankings, Nick, of who's in the running for the Dirk Nowitzki championship belt. Number 1, Giannis. The fact that he could go anywhere he wanted to, decided to stay in Milwaukee with the specter of Kareem over here, makes him the number 1. Number 2, what time is it? Dame time. You know it, Jenna. Number 3, Embiid. The process, it makes him a sentimental favorite. Number 4, Bradley Beal. Hey, John Wall's on my team. I always play second fiddle. Nope, now you're the guy, and Russ is there. And number 5, which I had no idea, Zion is the longest tenured Pelican. So I think everyone, and maybe it's just because I got a little Anthony Davis residue, it feels like, I get drafted number 1, I hang out in New Orleans, yeah, Mardi Gras is great, Jazz Fest is great, but I'm out of here. So Zion is already in the running for the Dirk Nowitzki belt, Nick. Overall, I think that Giannis's commitment to Milwaukee, it makes me the sentimental favorite, long tenured, and just makes me want to have him win a championship.
No, I love the belt, and it would be nice for, remember when Giannis figuratively took the crown from LeBron, but there was no actual crown, and he obviously didn't take it? I think, according to Wild Zone rules and regulations of the belt, currently LeBron holds it, right? The championship in Cleveland, he got it from Dirk, and he holds it now. So now Giannis could get it from LeBron. That'd be nice he actually got something from him. But speaking of LeBron, I want to reveal something to the audience, then I want to ask Broussard a question. When breaking news like this happens, everyone has a different reaction. What I do is search out old tweets of mine that have now been proven correct. So as soon as I saw that Giannis was re-signing, I'm like, oh, get Nick Wright, Giannis contract, find the tweet so I can retweet it as I told you he was re-signing with Milwaukee. And what I came across was a clip from a shaved head Nick Wright back in studio in October of 2017. So more than 3 years ago, where I said that I think in 2 years, when LeBron is done being the best player in the league, Giannis will be the best player in the league. Now, I was wrong on the LeBron being done part. I'm always shortchanging the guy. Bad job by me. But where I also was wrong was this. Giannis isn't yet ready to be in the discussion for best player in the league. And that's not because of his coach or his teammates. That's because of him. And I adore Giannis. And I said he should have been the MVP last year and the year before. But what Broussard said, and this is what I want to throw back to you, Broussard, I think is the biggest key here. When you look at why they went from 2-0 on Toronto 2 years ago to out of the playoffs, in large part it's because Giannis scored 20 points a game on 43% shooting in those final four games. Right. When you look at Broussard, why they fell down 0-3 to Miami, it wasn't a LeBron against the Magic situation where he's averaging 38, 9, and 9 and the teammates are falling apart. Giannis was not as good. And listen, he's young, he's awesome. I think he did something incredibly likable here. But for him to become a champion, it's not just Drew Holiday. He's got to get better. And I think this signifies that he knows that it's not just about going somewhere else, that it's that, you know what, maybe we did have enough, but my game wasn't well-rounded enough. I have to get better myself, and I love that for Milwaukee, and I love that for Giannis, and to me, that's also what this signified, Broussard.
No, I totally agree with that, Nick. And I want to comment, too, on the Dirk belt. That was cute, Wilds. That was cute. But here's the thing. Giannis has to be better than Dirk. Giannis has to be better than Dirk. He's viewed as great as Dirk is, Hall of Famer, all that, best European and stuff like that. If Giannis ends his career with one ring, it will be viewed as a disappointment. Giannis is one of those guys people are looking at to be maybe top 10 all time and maybe higher than that. But he's going to have to win championships. So I love the illustration, but that's not going to be enough for Giannis.
Wow. I really need to digest that Dirk take.